bit of actual electrical content related to the grid. Yeah, first of all, you need to watch the next video, and I need to scrub this right off the board. Also, this writing's backwards because I'm on the 4th page camera, so I need to sort that out. Or I'll just write everything backwards on the board. That's probably easier. But yeah, watch this video from my mate Greg.
But in the system I've just described, locational pricing, so prices will fall everywhere, but they particularly fall in areas that have got a lot of generation, obviously especially renewables. But it would also mean that, you know, when we're building new generation, we'd be building it close to where it's needed, and we'd need up to 1/3 less new grid, 1/3 fewer pylons.
Towers, Greg. They're called towers.
Right. Cutting the costs and reducing the number of communities impacted.
I don't know why Greg has to speak so much shit. Just absolute shit falls out of his mouth sometimes. Probably because he's not an engineer. He speaks shit that sounds great on paper. It's actually bollocks. I'm going to try and explain this drawing in a second, for which I'll make a new video for. If this interests you, I go into this much more extensively on the Renewables podcast, which I've done, which is going to come out in a few weeks, yeah? But I don't want to really cover this because I'm doing it on that, but it's relevant. So let me take you through the little drawing that I've done in the background that I've not used any words on because I'd be backwards. Back in the early days, yeah, what they do is they build a power station. The dots represent town. So there's a town, look. There's a town. There's a town. Don't worry about everything else, right? So if you had a town, you have a power station that ran your town. Now, the problem with that is, I'm sure you can work out, is that if the power station goes off, your town goes off. Also, if you had a big bit of infrastructure like, I don't know, a steel mill, a massive manufacturing plant, or a tramway, or even the London Underground, you just build a power station to provide the power for your bit of infrastructure, which is great until you don't want it. So in this case, I'm going to use the London Underground, for example. We'll pick that one as an example. Doesn't have to be the London Underground. I believe the Blackpool tram system had its own power stations. London Underground had its own power stations, blah, 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 blah. It don't really matter, yeah? So let's use London Underground. I'm just going to use that as a name to use, yeah? So they build a power station to power their infrastructure. But then they go, oh, we need more power. So they build another power station, and that power station is powering this line, and that power station is powering that line. However, they will have built a bit of extra into the system. So what they do is they connect the power stations together so that they can both run together, not at top whack, and power the two lines. Or if one of them breaks down or requires maintenance, they can turn that one off. But then the interconnection is there to power both lines. They are synchronised and they are connected, but they can just as happily be unsynchronised and unconnected, and you get the 50% requirement, you get 50% of the chance. Is that wrong? That's wrong. But basically, either one can power both, or both can power it together. So as electricity got more and more popular, you had town here with a power station, town here with a power station or two, town here with a power station or 3 or 4 or 1 or 2, who cares? Then you start getting the little power station owners, because they were just making a product and flogging it through distribution of their own. They go to the guys next door, they go, no, we don't like not making money when our power station's not on. So why don't we connect them up, and then we can liaise together, and we can not have the power at the same time. So they did that. They did an interconnection between their power station and their competitor's power station, with the idea being that even though they're competitors, they're not on our patch, and if we link up, we'll probably be able to always sell electricity without the lights going off, make it more popular. Then this guy appears like, because there was all blokes then in top hats, yeah, I'll have a bit of that action, so they put an interconnector into him. And then they go, well, what if this line fails? Why don't we put a line in here? And now we've got a triangle. It's not a triangle, it's a grid. It's just a grid. Yeah, they're interconnected. So at any point on this system, this is all assumption, and this is not science, yeah. Don't go using this in the exams, yeah. If this cable fails, that power station is connected to that power station, the other way round. If that cable fails, it's connected to that power and that power station, the other way round. So that's the cables failing. You can work out they can all go different ways. If 2 of the lines fail, these 2 are still on a little grid, but this one just does its own thing. If one of these fails, the other one can power it, and if that one fails, well, you've fucked it basically. So then this geezer comes along and we connect him to it. Yeah? And we have not necessarily all, you don't have to connect every substation to every substation, because that's what they become. The power stations become substations. You don't have to connect every substation to every substation, but you start interlinking them. Like, for example, we probably wouldn't have that one. Yeah? Probably wouldn't have that one, but you tend to have two separate connections, thus reducing the chance that one major failure will take you off. And this built up and built up and built up, and eventually one night, I believe, don't quote me on this, but it's a good story, one night, some engineers in the electricity generating control room said, let's sync the grid together nationally so it's one big massive spinning organism. And they did it. And guess what? They left it there because that provides a huge amount of stability for your electricity supply and the grid, but it causes protection problems. But what they did was they engineered the protection problems out. Let's not get to HV protection, else we'll be here for the next 4.5 years. What you've now got is you've got a grid like this that's bigger. There's more power stations all connected together, all different voltages, all different sort of protections going off. Yeah, so you've got the national grid. Then what happened then was the national grid's got. I'm not saying power producers aren't greedy. I'm not saying everyone's taking a little bit too money out of it. I'm not saying people aren't being ripped off. Yeah, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is everyone puts power. Let me redraw this. Yeah, effectively we don't need to have all this shit, because we can draw it like a small substation, which is effectively a pair of buzz bars, and every power station connects onto both. Ta-da! So it looks like that more than you've got these two pairs of buzz bars, because you've always got two ways of getting rid of electric. Two supplies in, two supplies out. That's how we're going to work it for this video, but it's just a set of buzz bars running the length of the country. Maybe I'll draw that now. I really am experimenting as well with getting the whiteboard to be better and not have reflections like that. Anyway, you've got this massive spine of double buzz bars going down the country, the 400 kV supergrid. This is not a technical explanation of the 400 kV supergrid, yeah? And what happens is, everyone who generates puts the power onto that grid. And everyone who wants to take it off it, takes it off that grid at various flavours and various voltages. And everyone who puts it on there sells it at a fixed price, which I don't necessarily agree with, because renewables are apparently should be cheaper. But everyone takes it off at a reasonably fixed price, yeah? What Greg's saying is, Greg's coming along and goes, oh, you know what? You know, if you've got a load of generation near you, I'm not saying the generation's there either, because you have to look at it, and because it's produced near you, you should get it cheaper, because it's generated near you, and doesn't have to go as far. Okay, Greg, that's a good idea. And because these people have got a load of generation near them, they should get it cheaper, because it hasn't got to go as far, because what Greg says is it all gets used round here and round here. Nice idea, Greg. I see what you're saying. Now, what Greg's done is, Greg's took fucking bananas, because he is fucking bananas, and what he said is, bananas are cheaper where they're grown, because they haven't got to go as far. So the bananas are cheaper. But if you want the bananas to come to where you are, you have to pay for the infrastructure associated with bananas, which is ships, ferries, offloading, unloading, diesel, storage, refrigeration, blah, 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 blah. And that makes your bananas cheaper. Well, I've got news for you, Greg. Electricity's not fucking bananas. And all I want to know is, regarding your pricing structure of localised pricing this year, if the people within this circle and this circle get cheaper energy because it's produced near them, what happens when that goes off and you have to use these cables to bring it from there to there? Do they suddenly start paying more or something? Because your regional locational pricing, you haven't explained that bit to me, Greg. You just keep saying, oh, if it's all made there, we'll do it there and all that bollocks. Other Billy bullshit ideas Greg comes out with is, Greg says, it's a grid again, 3 power stations. Greg goes, yeah, what we'll do is, we're going to build data centres near, it doesn't matter how this is generated, by the way. It could be nuclear, it could be wind, it doesn't fucking matter, because that's not what I'm on about, yeah? Greg goes, we're going to build shit near the power stations. Good idea, Greg. Yeah, we'll build some shit near the power stations. Now let's just assume it's directly connected, because they've got some secret arrangement going off, yeah? Greg says we need less pylons. Fucking hell, Greg, you're right, because this data centre is right fucking next to this power station, isn't it? So you only need these little itty bitty pylons here to get the power from there, don't you? So all this is a fucking waste of time, isn't it? Don't need any of this. Greg, you're a fucking genius, until this power station gets demolished, breaks down, blows up, or is on maintenance, in which case this data centre's just sat on its own. Guess where the electricity's coming from? It's going to come down the grid from probably both directions to go to a data centre. So what I'm getting at in very layman's terms is, great, build stuff near a power station. You probably will need less infrastructure because you can make a little connection. However, you'll always need the grid. When there's an outage, a problem, an issue, it's still going to have to get pumped up from other places. So how does locational pricing work then, Greg? Do you suddenly just start going, oh no, fuck it, we'll just build 2 power stations here? Also, he goes, oh, we're going to build energy generation near people's homes. Have you heard of NIMBYs, Greg? Yeah, people don't want a massive fucking coal-fired power station, gas-fired power station, nuclear power station, wind farm outside their fucking window. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that's the facts, yeah? So they tend to build them out the way like they've always done on existing power station sites, which are not next to major places, so they need connecting. Your idea that you're just going to reduce 33% of the power lines that you need is bullshit, Greg, because no matter what, when that goes off, it's going to come from there down. And when that one goes off, it's going to come from there up. So because of the way the grid works, you can't just go removing huge amounts of grid infrastructure, because at the end of the day, on this little simple system, this needs to be able to take all the power from here and feed it to there and there. And it needs to be able to take all the power from there and feed it there to there. So effectively it needs to be bigger than it needs to be, because you can't rely on localised power sources, because we have a grid. And we have a grid for the simple reason that if your electricity in your town goes off for more than a second, some NIMBY Karens on Facebook banging on about it, yeah? And the grid gives us stability, and the equipment and infrastructure gives us stability. And if you start not making as much grid because all the power station's local, when the power station's not local, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the Trent Valley where I am, 3 or 4 massive coal-fired power stations are closed down. The electricity's come from somewhere else, and the grid has managed to do that because of how it was built as a grid. Yeah, so in the Trent Valley in the Midlands, we're getting our power from somewhere else now. At one point we were making it all, and now we're importing it all. So yeah, so in the Trent Valley is like 3-4 major power stations, did a video on it the other day, that have gone. But it doesn't matter that they've gone, because we now bring the energy in, because we move it around the UK. And the fact that we used to send it out, now we bring it in, is because the grid is great. So when Greg talks about regional pricing, Greg's talking about regional pricing today. Say it stops being windy in Scotland, or the wind turbines get got rid of, something like that, you've then got to send the power up. So in 25 years' time, where your power stations were, your localised pricing's fucked. So I think Greg needs to come up with some technical solutions rather than just spouting this shit off on the internet like he does, and tell us how this regional pricing is going to work for a lifetime, for a generation, in 25, 50 years' time. Because I think basically when he talks about regional pricing, I think Greg's speaking out of his fucking arse. I hope that was useful. You see that whiteboard? See you later.